Do you have any idea who I am? Senator Richard Caldwell's voice carried across the precinct, silencing every conversation in its wake. His hand slammed against the metal desk, the sound reverberating through the room like a gunshot. I sit on the committee that controls your funding. One colony, single column, I can make sure every officer in this building is directing traffic for the rest of their careers. Detective Sarah Chen didn't flinch. That sounds an awful lot like threatening a police officer, Senator. She kept her voice level, professional, despite the rage building inside her. Would you like to add that to the growing list of charges? Caldwell laughed, a hollow sound devoid of humor. Charges? There won't be any charges. There never are. His eyes, cold and calculating, locked onto hers. By this time tomorrow, you'll be apologizing to me on national television. As if on cue, his phone rang. He answered with a smirk, then extended it toward her. It's for you. The commissioner wants a word. 6 months earlier, Sarah Chen stared at the crime scene photos spread across her desk. The victim, Maria Torres, had been found in the river 3 days ago, 22 years old. An intern at Caldwell's office. Accidental drowning was what the preliminary report suggested. But Sarah had been a detective long enough to know when something didn't add up. You're making a mistake, her partner, Detective James Wilson, said as he placed a coffee on her desk. Caldwell is untouchable. Half the department is in his pocket, and the other half is too scared to go against him. Someone has to, Sarah replied, not looking up from the photographs. This girl didn't just fall into the river, James. The bruising on her wrists, the defensive wounds someone held her under. Wilson sighed, lowering his voice. Look, I've been here 20 years. I've seen good cops, better cops than you or Metri to take on the powerful and lose everything. Their careers, their pensions, sometimes even their families. Sarah finally looked up. So what's your solution? We just let it go? Pretend we didn't see anything? Let Maria's family believe she just slipped and fell? I'm saying pick your battles. And Caldwell? He's not just any battle. The man's been in office for 30 years. He's survived 3 federal investigations. Hell, there are rumors he had a judge's son kidnapped to force a favorable ruling. Rumors don't interest me, Sarah said, gathering the photos and sliding them into a folder. Evidence does, and I'm going to find it. Wilson shook his head. You're on your own with this one, Chen. I've got 5 years till retirement. I can't risk it. Sarah nodded. She'd expected as much. I understand. But she didn't. Not really. How could anyone look at what happened to Maria Torres and choose to do nothing? Senator Richard Caldwell's office occupied the entire top floor of the Greenwood building. Its floor-to-ceiling windows, offering panoramic views of the city he'd shaped through decades of influence and manipulation. He stood now, looking down at the streets below, a glass of 18-year-old scotch in his hand. The detective's name is Sarah Chen. His chief of staff, Michael Barrett, said from behind him. Transferred here 2 years ago from Boston. Decorated officer. High closure rate. Reputation as a straight arrow. Everyone has a price, Michael, Caldwell replied, not turning around. Find hers. We've looked. No debt, no vices, no skeletons we can find. She lives modestly. Sends money to her mother every month. By all accounts, she's clean. Caldwell turned now, his expression darkening. Nobody's clean. Dig deeper. There's something else, Barrett continued, hesitation evident in his voice. She's been talking to Amanda Porter. This got Caldwell's attention. Amanda Porter had been his personal assistant 15 years ago, before she'd abruptly quit and moved across the country. She was one of the few people who knew about Vanessa, about what really happened that night. Find out what they've discussed, Caldwell commanded, finishing his drink in one swift motion. And Michael, make sure Detective Chen understands that curiosity can be dangerous, especially for cats with no one to miss them. The first warning came in the form of a dead bird on her apartment doorstep. Sarah photographed it, bagged it, then called animal control to dispose of it properly. It could have been coincidence. Cats left gifts all the time, but Sarah didn't believe in coincidences. The second warning was less subtle. Walking to her car after a late shift, she found all 4 tires slashed. A note under the wiper blade read simply, Stop digging. A week later, her apartment was broken into. Nothing was stolen, but everything was moved. Slightly drawers left partially open, books rearranged, her toothbrush placed on the wrong side of the sink. The message was clear. We can get to you anytime. You need to back off, Captain Reynolds told her the next day, not bothering to close his office door. This Torres case is becoming an obsession, and it's affecting your other work. With all due respect, sir, that's not true. I've closed 3 other cases this month, and you've been pushing this one on your own time, against my explicit instructions to let it go. The ME ruled it an accident, Chen. Accept it and move on. Sarah kept her voice steady. Sir, Maria Torres had sedatives in her system that weren't prescribed to her. She had bruising consistent with restraint. Her phone and laptop mysteriously disappeared. These aren't coincidences. Reynolds leaned forward, lowering his voice. Listen to me carefully. Caldwell has friends in every department in this city, including ours. This isn't about justice anymore. It's about your safety. Let it go. But Sarah couldn't, especially not after she met with Amanda Porter. I was 24 when I started working for him, Amanda said, her hands wrapped tightly around her coffee cup. They sat in a small cafe 3 hours outside the city, where neither of them was likely to be recognized. Young, ambitious, struck by his power. He was charming at first, attentive. Sarah nodded, letting her continue at her own pace. There was a girl named Vanessa Williams, an intern, like Maria, pretty smart. Caldwell took a special interest in her. Amanda paused, staring into her coffee, as if it held the memories she'd tried to forget. One night, there was a fundraiser at his estate. I saw him lead Vanessa upstairs. Later, I heard shouting. When I went to check, I found her crying, her dress torn. Did she say what happened? Sarah asked gently. Amanda nodded. She said he forced himself on her. When she threatened to report him, he laughed and told her nobody would believe her, that he'd destroy her life if she tried. What did you do? Nothing, Amanda whispered, shame evident in her voice. Absolutely nothing. I was scared, selfish. I convinced myself it wasn't my problem. She finally looked up, meeting Sarah's gaze. 2 weeks later, Vanessa killed herself, left a note naming him. The note disappeared from evidence, and the case was closed as an unfortunate tragedy. Sarah felt her chest tighten. And you think something similar happened with Maria Torres? I don't know specifics, but the pattern is the same. Young woman, sudden death. Case quickly closed. Amanda reached into her purse and pulled out a small flash drive. After Vanessa, I started keeping records. Conversations, emails, meetings that never officially happened. I was too cowardly to use it then, but maybe it can help you now. Sarah took the drive, knowing it could be the key to bringing Caldwell down, or the final push that would make him come after her with everything he had. The flash drive contained enough evidence to launch a proper investigation, if she could get anyone to look at it. Emails discussing payoffs to city officials, calendar entries for meetings with known criminals, voice recordings of Caldwell threatening someone who wanted to go public about contract irregularities. And there, buried among the files, was a video date stamped 3 days before Maria Torres died of Caldwell and Maria in his office, arguing. The audio was poor, but his final words came through clearly. No one says no to me. No one. Sarah made copies of everything, hiding them in different locations. She compiled a case file, meticulously organized and annotated. Then she went to the one person she thought she could trust, District Attorney Eleanor Hayes. This is explosive material, Detective, Hayes said after reviewing the evidence. If even half of this is verifiable, Caldwell is looking at serious time. It's all verifiable, Sarah assured her. I've checked and double-checked every piece. Hayes nodded thoughtfully. Leave this with me. I'll need a day or two to figure out how to proceed. We'll need to coordinate with the FBI, given Caldwell's position. This has to be handled perfectly. Sarah felt relief wash over her for the first time in months. Finally, someone was listening. Thank you, ma'am. No, thank you, Detective. It takes courage to do what you've done. Not many would risk it. As Sarah left the DA's office, she didn't notice the black sedan that pulled away from the curb to follow her. Nor did she see Hayes pick up the phone as soon as she was gone, her expression changing from concerned to calculating. "It's me," Hayes said into the receiver. "We have a problem." When Sarah arrived at the precinct the next morning, she was immediately called into Captain Reynolds' office. Inside, she found not only Reynolds, but also Internal Affairs Lieutenant Mason. "Detective Chen," Mason began without preamble, "we're investigating allegations that you've been tampering with evidence and pursuing an unauthorized investigation." Sarah felt as if the floor had dropped from beneath her. "That's absurd. I've done nothing improper." "We have witness statements saying otherwise," Reynolds said, not meeting her eyes. "Your computer and files have been seized for examination." "This is about Caldwell, isn't it?" Sarah asked, anger replacing her initial shock. "He got to you." Mason's expression hardened. "You're suspended pending investigation, Detective. Badge and gun, please." As Sarah surrendered her weapon and shield, she realized how completely she'd underestimated Caldwell's reach. Hayes must have gone straight to him with the evidence. The investigation would find nothing because there would be no investigation, just a carefully orchestrated dismissal of a troublesome detective. Outside the precinct, Sarah sat in her car, trying to decide what to do next. She still had copies of the evidence, but who could she trust to take it to? The FBI? The media? How could she be sure they weren't compromised as well? Her phone rang an unknown number. "Detective Chen," the voice said when she answered. "Or should I say, former detective. This is Michael Barrett, Senator Caldwell's chief of staff." Sarah said nothing, waiting. "The senator would like to meet with you to discuss your situation, perhaps find a mutually beneficial resolution." "Why would I agree to that?" "Because the alternative is much worse, Ms. Chen. Right now you're merely suspended, but by this time tomorrow you could be facing criminal charges, or worse." The threat wasn't subtle. When and where? "Tonight, 8 p.m., the senator's private residence." Barrett provided an address. "Come alone, obviously. Any recording devices will be detected and removed." Sarah ended the call, her mind racing. Going to Caldwell's home was dangerous, possibly suicidal. But it might be her only chance to get something concrete on him, something he couldn't make disappear with a phone call. Caldwell's estate was isolated, set back from the road behind high walls and an electronic gate. Security cameras tracked Sarah's approach as she drove up the long, winding driveway. The house itself was imposing, a modernist structure of glass and stone that seemed to emerge from the surrounding forest like a monument to power and wealth. Barrett met her at the door. "You'll be searched before seeing the senator," he said without greeting. A security guard patted her down thoroughly, then waved a handheld detector over her. Satisfied she wasn't wired, he nodded to Barrett. "This way." She was led through the house to Caldwell's study, a vast room with bookshelves lining the walls and a massive desk positioned before floor-to-ceiling windows. Caldwell sat behind it, looking exactly as he did in his campaign photos. Confident, commanding, utterly self-assured. "Detective Chen," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "Thank you for coming. Drink?" "No, thank you," Sarah replied, remaining standing. "I'd rather get to the point." Caldwell smiled thinly. "Direct. I appreciate that." He leaned back in his chair. "You've been causing quite a bit of trouble. Asking questions, gathering information, making accusations, all on the basis of what? A drowning that was ruled accidental? We both know Maria Torres didn't drown accidentally. Do we?" Caldwell raised an eyebrow. "Or do you just desperately want to believe that because it fits your narrative of me as some sort of villain?" He stood, moving to a side table to pour himself a drink. "People like you see the world very simply, Detective. Good and evil, right and wrong. The reality is far more complex." "There's nothing complex about murder," Sarah said flatly. Caldwell laughed. "Is that what you think happened? That I murdered a young woman and somehow covered it up?" He shook his head. "You've been watching too many movies." "I have evidence." "You have nothing," he interrupted, his voice suddenly hard. "Whatever you think you have has already been dealt with. Hayes gave us everything. The flash drive, your case notes, all of it. Amanda Porter has recanted her statement, claiming you coerced her. By tomorrow, She'll be on a plane to Europe, courtesy of a new job opportunity that was simply too good to pass up. Sarah felt cold dread spreading through her. You won't get away with this. But I already have, Detective, multiple times. He returned to his desk, sitting down casually. Now, let's discuss your future. You have two options. The first is unpleasant criminal charges, professional disgrace, possibly even an unfortunate accident like the one that befell Miss Torres. He let the threat hang in the air before continuing. The second option is more attractive. You resign quietly, citing personal reasons. You leave the city, start fresh somewhere else. In return, you receive a generous severance package and my assurance that you'll be left alone. All traces of this unfortunate episode disappear. And if I go to the media? With what? Hearsay from a woman who's now denying everything? Copies of files that have been proven to be forgeries? Your word against mine? Caldwell smiled. I've weathered far worse storms than you, Detective Chen. Sarah stood silently, weighing her options. She could fight go public, risk everything, possibly die in another accident. Or she could walk away, live to fight another day, perhaps find another way to bring Caldwell down. I need time to think, she said finally. You have until tomorrow morning, Caldwell replied. After that, events will be set in motion that cannot be stopped. He pressed a button on his desk. Barrett will show you out. As she was led back through the house, Sarah's mind raced. There had to be a way to salvage this, to turn the tables somehow. Outside, she sat in her car for several minutes, staring at nothing. Then she started the engine and drove away, a plan already forming in her mind. The next 24 hours were a blur of activity. Sarah contacted every trustworthy person she knew in law enforcement, calling in favors, building a network of allies. She retrieved her remaining copies of the evidence, distributing them to multiple sources with instructions to release them if anything happened to her. She couldn't trust the local FBI office, they were too closely tied to Caldwell, but she had a former academy classmate working in the public corruption unit in Washington. She sent him everything, along with a detailed account of what had happened. By morning, she had made her decision. She wouldn't run, and she wouldn't accept Caldwell's deal. She would force a confrontation on her terms. Which is how she found herself walking into the police precinct at precisely 9 a.m., moving directly to Caldwell's temporary office. He was there for a scheduled press conference, something about community policing initiatives, a photo opportunity to boost his image. She pushed past his security, ignoring their protests, and entered the office without knocking. Caldwell looked up, surprised, then smiled when he recognized her. Detective Chen, I was just wondering what your decision would be. I'm placing you under arrest, Senator Caldwell, Sarah announced, loud enough for everyone in the room to hear, for the murder of Maria Torres, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy. The room fell silent. Then Caldwell began to laugh. On what authority? He asked, amused. You've been suspended? Or didn't you get the memo? Actually, came a voice from the doorway. She's been reinstated. FBI Special Agent Thomas Carter stepped into the room, flanked by several agents. And she's working with us now. Caldwell's amusement vanished, replaced by cold calculation. This is a mistake, Agent Carter. A serious one. I don't think so, Senator. We've been building a case against you for months. Detective Chen's evidence was the final piece we needed. Carter nodded to his agents, who moved toward Caldwell. Richard Caldwell, you're under arrest for corruption, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to commit murder. You have the right to remain silent. As the agents led Caldwell away, he locked eyes with Sarah. Do you have any idea who I am? He hissed, loud enough for everyone to hear. I sit on the committee that controls your funding. One single calend, I can make sure every agent in your office is investigating parking violations for the rest of their careers. That sounds an awful lot like threatening a federal officer, Senator, Sarah replied calmly. Would you like to add that to the growing list of charges? 1 month later, Sarah stood in the cemetery, watching as Maria Torres's family placed flowers on her grave. The FBI investigation had uncovered evidence that Caldwell had been drugging and assaulting interns for years, using his power and connections to silence victims and cover up his crimes. Hayes had been arrested for obstruction of justice. Captain Reynolds had resigned in disgrace. Amanda Porter had returned from Europe to testify, along with several other former staffers who had witnessed Caldwell's abuses. But victory felt hollow. Maria was still dead, along with at least 2 other women whose accidents were now being reinvestigated. And Caldwell, despite the mountain of evidence against him, had been released on bail pending Triala's connections and wealth, ensuring he received preferential treatment even now. Sarah's phone rang Agent Carter. "Chen, turn on the news," he said without preamble. Sarah pulled out her phone and opened a news app. The headline made her blood run cold. Key witness in Caldwell case found dead. Amanda Porter had been discovered in her hotel room, an apparent suicide, just like Vanessa Williams 15 years earlier. "This isn't a coincidence," Sarah said, her voice tight. "No," Carter agreed grimly, "but proving it will be nearly impossible. Caldwell's too careful." Sarah ended the call, a cold certainty settling over her. The system was broken. Justice, as she had always understood it, was an illusiona game rigged in favor of the powerful. Caldwell would likely walk free. There would be no justice for Maria, for Vanessa, for Amanda, for all the others who had suffered at his hands. Unless the security at Caldwell's estate was sophisticated but not impenetrable. Sarah had studied it carefully during her visit, noting the blind spots, the patterns of the guards, the vulnerabilities. She waited until 2 a.m., when the guard rotation created a brief window of opportunity. Dressed in black, face obscured, she moved silently through the darkness, avoiding the cameras, staying in the shadows. Breaking in was surprisingly easy for someone with her training. Disabling the alarm took less than a minute. Moving through the silent house, she made her way to Caldwell's study, where a light still burned. He sat at his desk, reviewing documents, a glass of scotch at his elbow. He didn't hear her enter, didn't notice her presence until she spoke. "Hello, Senator." Caldwell looked up, startled, then composed himself when he recognized her. "Detective Chen. Or is it just Miss Chen now? I lose track of who's been fired for incompetence these days." "It's still detective," Sarah replied, moving closer to the desk. "Though I suspect that's about to change." Caldwell leaned back, studying her, breaking and entering, threatening a sitting senator. "Yes, I'd say your career is effectively over. Along with your freedom." He reached for his phone. "Shall I call the police now? Or would you like to embarrass yourself further first?" Amanda Porter didn't kill herself. Caldwell paused, then set the phone down. "Of course she did. The evidence is quite clear. Depression, anxiety, a history of mental health issues that she kept well hidden. Tragic, but not surprising given the pressure she was under. You had her killed, just like you killed Maria Torres and Vanessa Williams and God knows how many others." Sarah's voice was steady, despite the rage burning inside her. "And you're going to keep getting away with it because the system is broken. Because men like you own the system." "Men like me built the system, Detective." Caldwell's smile was cold, triumphant. "We are the system, and little people like you will always lose when you try to fight us." "Maybe," Sarah acknowledged. "Or maybe not." She placed a small device on his desk, a digital recorder, its red light blinking. "What's this supposed to be?" Caldwell asked, unimpressed. "Insurance," Sarah replied. "It's been transmitting our entire conversation to multiple secure locations, including your confession about Amanda Porter." "I confessed to nothing," Caldwell scoffed. "And any recording obtained illegally is inadmissible in court." "This isn't about court anymore, Senator. This is about truth, about finally exposing you for what you are." Sarah's expression hardened. "Every news outlet in the country will receive this recording by morning. Your own words, in your own voice, dismissing the deaths of young women as insignificant obstacles. Boasting about how you control the system." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Caldwell's face. "No one will believe it. They'll say it's doctored, manufactured." "Some won't believe it," Sarah agreed. "Your die-hard supporters, your paid apologists. But others will. They'll listen, and they'll know deep down that it's real, that you're exactly the monster they feared you were. She moved toward the door. Your power comes from perception, Senator, from people believing in your infallibility. What happens when that belief crumbles? Caldwell stood abruptly, his composure cracking. You bitch, he snarled. I'll destroy you for this. I'll make sure you spend the rest of your miserable life in prison. I'll take everything you have, everyone you care about. Sarah simply nodded. I know you'll try, and maybe you'll succeed. But first, you'll watch your empire fall apart, your colleagues distancing themselves, your donors vanishing, your legacy in ruins. She paused at the door. Was it worth it, Senator? All the lives you destroyed, all for a few moments of power? Before he could answer, she was gone, slipping back into the darkness. The recording went viral by noon the next day. Despite Caldwell's immediate claims that it was fake, the damage was done. The public, already suspicious after the arrests and Amanda's death, turned against him en masse. Former allies distanced themselves. Donors withdrew support. More victims came forward, emboldened by the public outcry. Sarah was arrested, as expected. Breaking and entering, illegal surveillance, harassment, the charges mounted quickly. She was released on bail pending trial, her career in law enforcement effectively over. But she didn't regret her actions. For the first time, Caldwell was truly on the defensive, his carefully constructed facade crumbling under the weight of public scrutiny. The final blow came 3 days later. Michael Barrett, perhaps seeing the writing on the wall, turned state's evidence. In exchange for immunity, he provided detailed testimony about Caldwell's crimes, including direct evidence linking the senator to Amanda Porter's death. Federal agents arrived at Caldwell's estate to arrest him on new charges of conspiracy to commit murder, but they were too late. Richard Caldwell, the untouchable power broker who had spent decades above the law, was found in his study, a single gunshot wound to his head, a handwritten note beside him confessing to his crimes. Some called it justice. Others, like Sarah, knew better. Caldwell had chosen the easiest way out, denying his victims the closure of seeing him stand trial, of witnessing his downfall in real time. Even in death, he had maintained control. As Sarah stood outside the courthouse after her final hearing, the charges against her reduced to misdemeanors in light of the extraordinary circumstances, a reporter approached her. Detective Chen, do you feel vindicated by Senator Caldwell's confession and suicide? Sarah considered the question carefully. There's no vindication here, she finally replied. Only tragedy. For Maria Torres, for Amanda Porter, for all the women who suffered while those with the power to stop him looked away. The system failed them. We all failed them. And your career? Your future? Sarah looked at the courthouse, at the symbols of justice that had proven so hollow. I don't know, she admitted, but I do know that there are more Richard Caldwells out there. More powerful men who believe they're untouchable, who believe the rules don't apply to them. Her expression hardened with resolve. And as long as they exist, they need to be reminded that no one is truly untouchable. No one. As she walked away, Sarah knew her fight wasn't over. It had merely changed form. Caldwell was gone, but the system that had protected him remained. The network of powerful men who had covered for each other, who had allowed his crimes to continue year after year. They would be more careful now, more vigilant, but so would she. And the next time, she wouldn't wait for the system to fail before taking action.